Hi everyone, my name's Lily and I'm the book reviewer behind Utopia State of Mind, and today I'm bringing you my June wrap-up. I know in my May wrap-up I already said that June was going to be a doozy and I was going to melt, so I'm sorry if you can hear the fact that my fan is going on, my windows are open, there's this bird that is kind of starting to try to nest around where I live, so sorry about all of those, but I am melting. I'm convinced that I melt throughout the day and then at nighttime I reform and I come back. Like, I just am really struggling. I have gotten so many heat rashes. I'm suffering. I just need this. I'm very sorry about the background noise. I hope to make it up with some great content. So let me chat about the things that I made first of all. Since it is so hot, what obviously did I make in May? And by May I mean June. I made this slip over. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I will link down below the video vlog where I talk about knitting it and the multiple mental breakdowns I had, the tears over this piece of clothing. Let me know if you liked that. I actually really enjoyed filming that, but I don't know if anyone liked it. I'm still trying to get a sense of how I find the cross section of people who really love reading and really love knitting and crocheting. Those are my people, and I'm trying to find them. So this is my attempt to kind of put out more content that are alongside my interests. I really love reading books, but that's not all I am. I really love to knit and crochet. I love to make earrings. These are not made by me, but I love to make earrings. So I'm trying to show a little bit more about the hobbies in my life. I'm not a great vlogger. You may have seen that in my Calabasas vlog and in my knitting vlog. I'm not a great vlogger, but I can only get better if I try. So I finished that. I also made a bunch of coasters to give away as gifts, which I don't have any because they're given away. So unfortunately I can't show you that. I can also say that in June I knit this much of a different slip over sweater vest. I am just knitting for the season that I want in my heart, and that is fall/winter. So I just have July and August left to go, 1 month down, 2 to go. Well, actually, I guess May was also kind of warm, but not as warm. It's mostly been June that has been really warm, and July that is starting off strong, being very warm. Like, the warmest it's been all summer. I'm dripping right now, which is why I haven't done really book looks in a while, because I just, my bathroom has a fan, but it doesn't necessarily have a lot of current, like air current. So when I film or when I do makeup looks and I need the mirror, I just sweat. Like, it's really attractive. Anyway, that's what I made in June. What do I say about June except that I have been suffering under the heat. I have been trying to do things. I had some really big kind of life events and some tests and stuff that I had to study for, which were really intense. But they're in the past for me. But like, I have been struggling so hard to do anything productive when it's so hot. I don't know about you all, but I'm not a heat person. So for me, the summer, when it's so hot, I actually struggle to kind of think clearly. So anyway, that's how June was. It is so hot. Hold on, I need to put my hair up. It is so hot. I don't know how July will go. It's so hot. I'm already looking forward to some travel plans I have in August, where it won't be as hot, hopefully. So, fingers crossed. But anyway, just struggling. Okay, what did I read? What were my stats? Let me just show you the pile of books. I did a really good job at making sure that this pile of books was super organized in terms of height, as you can tell. Obviously sarcasm, because the bottom is way shorter than the top, but here it is. Whoa! Sorry about that. It's so hot. Anyway, those are the books that I read in June. I am really, really happy about my stats. So, first of all, 50% of the books that I read in June had characters of color as main characters. That is a stat that I consistently am very good at. But 47% of them had queer characters as main characters. I love to see it for Pride Month. Obviously, we should all read queer books all year long, which I do and I show in my stats. But I'm very happy with my 47%. And I had so many favorites, actually. So let me just pull out some of the ones here. Let me just also say before we go on, June was a month of bops and flops. Like, I don't know how tops and bops. No, that's the same thing. Bops and not bops. I don't know. I read some books that I really, really loved, and I read some books I really did not like. I try to keep this channel for the most part very positive. Let me just get like that out of the way. I gave up on a series that I talked about in my wanting to read and complete series video, which I will link down below. But I did not enjoy, what was this called even? I did not enjoy Rule of the Aurora King, and I think I'm giving up on the series. I can talk a little bit more about this in another video because I think it's really interesting in terms of series pacing. So if you want me to chat about it, I can chat about it in the future, but I'm giving up on that series. I'm very sorry to everybody else, but I'm sorry. I also read some that were very anticipated for me, which were also flops. So that's a little bit sad. I won't talk about them each in depth, but I just wanted to mention that while there were really, really great books, there are also floppy flop books. Let me just start off with the YA books. I also want to say I'm doing a great job at reading NetGalley audiobooks. I have talked about it on social media, but my phone is actively protesting against me for how much space I have in NetGalley audiobooks. So I've been making a concentrated effort to only listen to those books, to remove those, and I get more phone space. And I'm doing really well. And two of them actually made it into my favorites for this month. The first one is Trouble. If you love this, Trouble to me is like Jane Eyre meets The Sound of Music. So we have a governess. We also kind of like The Sound of Music. We have a family who needs a governess, and the kids are kind of just all over the place, don't necessarily want a governess. So that's like The Sound of Music comp. Jane Eyre comp, because it's historical fiction, and there's also this component of like this, this figure, and he's the father of these people, and so we're also not sure like what his deal is, and he also needs to make kind of an advantageous match to ensure the future of his family. So those are kind of like the reasons for those two comps. And basically in this one, our main character, she takes the place of her sister and becomes a governess for this family, and then actually realizes that this family and also the people around kind of start forming this found family. But she is super, super hesitant. She's kind of just like, not only do I not belong here, I want to steal also from them to get money to take care of my sister. And all these people are really nice to me, and I really like them, and, I want to do things for them, but, like, I don't love them. They can't possibly love me. Trouble was a book that really kind of explores what it feels like to think that we are not wanted and not loved, and how that feels, to realize that might not be true. So I really love that one. And the second one that I read in audiobook as well was For She Is Wrath. This is a Count of Monte Cristo YA retelling. So good. Basically, Count of Monte Cristo is this huge, epic revenge story. I have not read that, but I've watched a few adaptations. And For She Is Wrath is a YA take on this. This was so good. We have not only chapters from the now and the past, but like, they were so good to see the depth of the betrayal. One of my main sort of qualms, I guess, about Count of Monte Cristo, at least the adaptations I've seen, because of course the book is gigantic, so it cannot be the same, but the adaptations I've seen, they don't focus a lot on kind of the becoming process, right? So the whole thing is that she's been wrongly imprisoned because of a betrayal, and so she's going to escape prison and get back at the guy who betrayed her. And while she's doing that, she goes through this reinvention process where she literally has to become unrecognizable to get revenge on kind of everyone who has ever wronged her. In the Count of Monte Cristo, that's the same thing. He has to go through this position where he like gets money and he gets well polished and he kind of looks completely different than everyone else suspects. But you don't see that as much in the adaptations I've seen. But in the For She Is Wrath, you see a lot of the becoming process in this one. And I think the themes of revenge, and specifically the themes of will revenge take everything I am and leave me with nothing at the end of the day is really, really beautifully explored in For She Is Wrath in a way that I think the movie adaptations that I've seen could do a little bit better at. I have not read the gigantic book of it, so maybe that should be on my TBR and I can let you know how I feel about it, but that is why I loved For She Is Wrath. In terms of other YA books, I really loved Tenderly I Am Devoured. This is this great kind of blend of gothic fantasy and found family, I guess. So the main character, she comes back from school. She's been expelled, but not everybody really knows it. And she comes back to school, and her old ex is now a rival, or he's always been part of a different family, but now they're rivals because his family is going to collect on the debt that her family owes. They have like salt mines. In this, there's a gothic kind of fantasy element to the gods, these salt priests. That's kind of the gothic fantasy elements to that. It also has a study of drowning vibes too, because she has been expelled from this academy that was like her main dream to go to, and the why she's been expelled and like all of that definitely gave me a study in drowning kind of vibes. Also this thing of like the old gods, also a study of drowning vibes. So definitely check this out if you like that one. But what I really loved about this one, not only is it queer and poly, but what I really loved about this one is the found family that is created between these characters, the main character and like these other characters. It is really devoted into what happens when the people that are supposed to love us in terms of our family don't. How do we create methods and ways of creating family and meaningful connections when we've had no role models? And what does that mean for transparency, authenticity, vulnerability? How do we create those relationships in this kind of gothic fantasy action setting as well? I thought it was really beautifully balanced. Next, we have Coffee Shop in an Alternate Universe. This was so fabulous. I love alternate universes. I've mentioned this before. I'm a timey-wimey girly. I love alternate universes. And Coffee Shop in an Alternate Universe was so fun. It manages to balance what is like a cozy fantasy with also high stakes, kind of is the world ending, are you the chosen one vibe. So basically in Coffee Shop in an Alternate Universe, it's dual perspective. One of the characters needs to go like charge her computer and submit an application, and she ends up going into this coffee shop which is in an alternate universe, and she meets someone there. They kind of hit it off and she's like, okay, let's exchange numbers, and then she goes back home and she doesn't realize she's been in this alternate universe. And then here goes kind of this cozy story about them getting to know each other, but also the alternate universes and what's going on with the alternate universes, ... There's so much in the second half that is this macro world and this macro themes about the world that I can't talk about because it's spoilers. But anyway, that is the plot of that one. I don't know, it just manages to balance these two things really, really well. I've seen this a lot being talked about as cozy fantasy, and I do agree there is an element of coziness, but there's also a huge element of kind of corruption, magic, sacrifice, chosen ones. So definitely recommend that one because it has this really great balance. It feels to me like if you've read the Not Your Sidekick series by C.B. Lee, then you'll kind of understand what I mean by this balance between character dynamic and character work, and also these larger forces at play in the macro world. And that's all I really can say without spoiling it, so that is on my favorites. Also, we have Embrace the Serpent, which is in my pile. Hold us on a second. Embrace the Serpent. I love unique magic systems, and this kind of jewel smithing one definitely fits the bill. In Embrace the Serpent, she's a jewel smith, so she's basically working. She doesn't want everyone to know how powerful she is, so she's working under this guy who's kind of awful and not the greatest, and he wants to be kind of in this competition with all of these other jewelry making people. Are they jewel smith? I guess jewel smiths. To make something for this Serpent King, and then it kind of comes out that she's the one who's really powerful, and she ends up kind of having to become the fake wife for the Serpent King so that she can work for him without this other guy getting in the way. And then what happens is then she has some sparks with the Serpent King's bodyguard person, second in command, and she's trying to kind of also figure out what the Serpent King really even wants. So that's the story about Embrace the Serpent. It is super, super swoony. I love the unique magic. I love the swoons. They were really fantastic. And the ending is really, really good. Like, the ending sealed the deal for me. It is so good. And so that's why it's on my favorite list. And the last one that I want to talk about is If We Survive This. This is my favorite Raquel Marie book. I have loved Raquel's books so much, and If We Survive This is this post-apocalyptic kind of zombie story. Basically, she and her brother kind of have this radio, and they hear this radio transmission about her from her dad being like, come find me, basically. I don't remember the exact words. But it's this world in which there are zombies, kind of rabbits. They kind of have this kind of rabies-like symptoms. They're surviving, they're okay, but they're like, okay, we're going to find her dad. So, well, their dad. And so when they go, they end up meeting up with a friend of hers, or like they kind of have not been in contact for a while. Obviously, the world's ending, or the world has kind of ended. Like, I don't know, they're zombies. But she comes in contact with this former crush and this former flame in the end of the world, and they're like, okay, let's go all together to this lake house. It'll be safe. That's where my dad is. So that's the plot of this, their journey to there. But what I really loved is that the main character is struggling with OCD and anxiety. And what I loved about this is Raquel Marie takes this idea of like the world ending and examines what about for these people where they think about what if the world ended in every moment, right, in every second. What if I got a cut and I got infected? And what if someone I love died? And what if I walked outside and I got hit by a car? And how can I make myself safe? And it takes this idea of OCD, and it takes this idea of all of these anxieties and these worries, and it's kind of like, well, what if the world really did end? What if the world ended and there were zombies? How would you deal with that? So it has this kind of beautiful balance with perspectives from the past and perspectives from now, which look at all of the little ways that our worlds die every day. A world in which we don't have the people we love anymore because they're no longer with us. Or a world in which, you know, we've had our heart broken and we're not the same person again. So it looks at that. It looks as well at her OCD. And then it also looks at, like, what if there were zombies around all the time? It was heartbreaking, heartrending, and so, so gorgeous. Like, I took so many notes while reading this because I was just swept away. It was one of those things where I took longer to read this, actually. I know that in a lot of reviews I'm kind of like, oh, I finished this book way earlier than I thought. But this one, I finished it longer than I thought because I was taking notes so much. So those are all the YA books I want to talk about. Let's talk about 2 adult romances, which are both music themed. Anyway, Never Been Shipped is this band which has broken up in kind of like dramatic circumstances, and they decide to come back to do kind of one performance on a cruise as sort of like a thing that everyone kind of needs for a variety of reasons in their career. And so she used to be dating this other guy in the band, and it kind of did not work out. But she's always kind of had a feelings for this other person in the band. They actually kind of predated the band, actually. And so that is kind of the idea of Never Been Shipped. They're on this cruise ship, and what's going to happen? Forced proximity, old flames, like cruise ship vibes. This I really, really loved. It's by Alicia Thompson. I've really loved Alicia's books. Other ones like Love in the Time of Serial Killers, With Love from Cold World. So this is also kind of like a spin-off book from With Love from Cold World. One of the main characters there is a side character friend in this one. And so I really, really loved this one. The musical vibes are there. If you loved... We don't love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm just going to say that right now. But if you loved like the vibes, I guess, of... what is that music one? The music one that person wrote, which we don't love because of the author. But if you love this idea of band drama, coming back together, tension and everything like that, it's like this a little bit, and they all have to be on a cruise again, basically. This was super swoony, super spicy, and I really, really loved them having to come together and realize, can we actually make this work? Because the cruise ship, to me, it's very much kind of like a microcosm. So would it actually work outside of the cruise ship? And it also looks at their past memories and their past relationships. So this was really, really good. I read this before bed and was kind of like kicking my feet every time I read this at nighttime. It was just so adorable and I really enjoyed it. And the next one is Sounds Like Love, which is Ashley Poston's most recent book. I've read a lot of Ashley's books in the past and really enjoyed them, but this has to be one of my favorite ones. I really liked this one. Basically, she is a songwriter and she comes back from home to kind of be with her family because her mom is sort of starting to get symptoms of dementia. And so there she's also kind of figuring out, do I really want to go back to LA? You know, this is my home. Does it really feel like home anymore? My family kind of needs me. Can I really be here? And she also finds out that her family runs this local kind of theater venue for concerts, basically, and they want to close it. So it's all about that, and that's kind of the premise. And also then she ends up hearing the song in her head, and she thinks that it's just like a voice in her head, but actually it's connected to someone, and they decide to write a song together because they think that's the only way that they can get the song out of their head. So that's the plot of Sounds Like Love. I really loved it because it really kind of looks at misconceptions. It looks at kind of the authenticity and the vulnerability you have to have when you're writing songs with somebody. But I think what hits closer to me, or what I really loved about that one, was it's really devoted to looking at her relationship with her mother, her feeling like she has to stay, her wondering, should she have stayed? Like all of these kind of questions about her mom and her family who's been dealing with this when she's not here, and how things have been going, and also with the theater, her feels about home, her feels about having left home, should she leave home, should she stay? Like that to me resonated so strongly that I actually am having trouble talking about it right now. But anyway, that's why I really liked Sounds Like Love, and I actually can't talk about it anymore, so I have to go on. I loved two adult fantasies. The first one I have, it is Soul Gazer. I loved this one. I got swept away. I've been looking for a pirate book for a really long time, and this one fit the bill. There are some pirate flops in between, but this one is there. If you love, the two main characters, basically, let me just start off with a plot. She has this magical power, which she got because she was kind of cursed. There's this idea of soul stones, and she touched one, and she was cursed. Her family also hates her. They're awful because she had this power, and because unknowingly, when she was around, basically, one of her family members died. And so they're kind of like, you're responsible. We kind of hate you. Let's just marry you off. And she's kind of like, yes, okay, fine. Everyone hates me. This is how I should help my family. I don't want to do this. My family hates me. I'm cursed. I'm awful. Like, I guess I should just do this. But then when she's going through like this engagement thing, which she really, really does not want to do, her family is like really, really pushing her into this, and they're making her believe she has to do it. She meets this kind of a legendary figure who is in a lot of different stories, like a renowned figure, the wolf, and she's like, hey, I'm going to actually try to help you find this mystical island to kind of figure out if I can get rid of my powers. I'm going to run away with you instead, but we need to also get married so that we don't start this war between my dad and the guy he's supposed to marry me off with and like everybody else. So that's the premise. And one thing I really loved about this one was she has to deeply explore how awful her family is and how much her family has made her hate herself and her power and her like everything, right? So if you love a character that really has to go through that, Soul Gazer is for you. And on the flip side, we have this other character which I also really liked, so the wolf character, because I am really drawn to characters who want to be renowned, like who want to have this larger than life illusion, who like have this idea to always become the next big story. And for her, she's kind of, developing feelings, and there's this kind of sparks in these tensions, but at the same time, she's thinking, I don't want to be another chapter in this person's book. I don't want to be another story that this person has a story that I grew up hearing, right? Kind of like never meet your heroes, maybe never also fall for your heroes. And this other main character is so firmly entrenched in this kind of reckless, charming pirate personality where he's just kind of like this legendary figure. And so watching him struggle with that and watching him kind of figure out, is it more important to be renowned than it is to be loved or to be admired? Like admiration versus actual genuine authenticity. Watching him struggle with that, and I think we're going to see it a lot more in book 2, but watching him struggle with that was really pleasant to watch. And I really am drawn to characters like this who have to figure out, is the story worth it? Is it more worth it to have this large story where we all know heroes do not get a good ending, but is that more worth it than like what I have right now? Soul Gazer. And the next one and the final one I want to talk about is A Forbidden Alchemy, which I really loved. I will kind of link my TikTok down below because I've chatted about Soul Gazer and A Forbidden Alchemy on TikTok, but I've watched way too many hours of Peaky Blinders edits, but I haven't watched any because I know that as soon as I get into it, I will just go down this kind of rabbit black hole and I will not resurface till I'm done, and I cannot afford to do that right now. But A Forbidden Alchemy is kind of like Peaky Blinders meets fantasy. Basically, these two characters meet because in this world, it's divided by crafters and artisans. Artisans have these magical powers. Crafters kind of just do the brute force work. They mine for the resources that the artisans need, and they also have to kind of subject themselves to what their whims are. And basically there's this kind of choosing ceremony where everyone kind of comes and they kind of figure out, do you have any magical powers? And these two main characters meet at this choosing ceremony when they're really young, and they find out this whole thing is a scam. Like, this whole choosing ceremony is a scam perpetuated by the artisans to make sure that there's enough crafters, to make sure that the power stays with the right people. Like, ugh. Anyway, these two main characters now have to figure out, what are you going to do with that knowledge? And they go in very different directions. One of them decides to scam the system, make sure that she has power, and become one of the artisans. But also, how do you live with that guilt, knowing that you know that the system is rigged and you're just gonna be in the system? And she deals with that in different ways. And the other character who's like, no, I'm not, like, I don't want any part of this, see you later, right? And so then they meet years and years later where there's now tensions because when they've done this, they've started a spark. They've started a spark and tension between these two different groups. And so they meet each other years and years later on opposite sides of this conflict, where he's now part of this crafter rebellion to kind of realize that, like, they're fearing for their lives every day. Artisans don't treat them very well. They have to go into these mines every day, not knowing if they will come out. They have to drown their sorrows and their fears. The whole community is kind of like permeated by this sense of fear and loss, and the artisans just don't even care. And they've also been gaming the system. Like, they just, no. So he is part of this rebellion movement, and actually she isn't necessarily part of the artisan movement. She's kind of left the artisans because she's kind of like, both of you are engaging in this war that I don't want any part of. So that's the setup for this. And so when she actually goes and meets him again in their kind of rebellion town, she has to kind of figure out, where does she really stand? Like, what are her actual loyalties to, and the sparks between them. So this was also super, super swoony. I really loved the swoon, but I think what I loved even more about it were the two characters who really have to figure out, like, how do you deal with this guilt? How do you deal with the guilt? How do you deal with the violence and the disruptive nature of rebellion? How do you deal with the consequences, the collateral damage? How do you deal with that in a way that the society is, like, obviously so broken and it cannot stand? What is the price of change and who pays it? I really loved those themes. Obviously, I really loved the swoons as well between the two characters, but I really liked them kind of figuring out the price of rebellion and if each of them are going to be willing to pay it. So those were my favorites of June. I realize this is a really long video. I'm very sorry about that, but I had a lot of favorites I wanted to talk about. Let me know down below what your favorite read from June was, and I will hopefully see you in my next video in July for my wrap up for July if I have not melted into an actual candle. Have a really great rest of your reading day, week, month, and year, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.